What's up, everybody? We are back with a bonus segment for the Factory Tour, episode 20. I'm here with Chris Miles. We just wrapped up the main show talking about preseason week 2, all of the relevant storylines, reacting to injuries, some Jonathan Taylor trade talk. We're here to talk a little bit about some sneaky Dynasty buys. These are some real galaxy brain buys. We're talking like deep Dynasty stashes, players that could potentially, maybe, if everything works out, find their value really rising over the next year. So we each have two names. We're going to just go back and forth, and we are digging deep here. So these are guys you can get. They might be on waivers. They might be, worth a 4th round rookie pick, whatever. But I'm going to start things out with Noah Fant, who currently plays tight end for the Seattle Seahawks. He's their starting tight end. He was traded there last year from the Broncos in the Russell Wilson trade. And this is a guy who was a great college prospect, had an exciting rookie season at tight end, and then just really hasn't put it all together since. But there's a lot to like about Noah Fant, just the athleticism, the early production. He does remind me of some other tight ends that we've seen hit later on in their careers, like Evan Ingram, like David Njoku. And so I think Fant is a really great buy to be that late career tight end breakout because he's still pretty young. He came into the league young. I think he's only 26, 27. We could see him land, on a new team and immediately find himself getting a lot more opportunities and just see his dynasty value resurrected because this was a guy people were excited about for a long time. And I don't think it would take a lot for them to buy back in. Chris, any thoughts on Noah Fant as a dynasty buy?
Yeah, I mean, this was a guy that in his rookie class, it was, should we draft Noah Fant or should we draft TJ Hawkinson?
Mm-hmm.
And their careers could not have gone more polar opposite directions. But it proves the level of a prospect that he was back then. And like you said, there's a tight end, just sometimes it takes a long time. There's really not a huge reason that Noah Fant couldn't, put a season together and rise in value and, be a startable asset for your team. I think this is a good call out. I did get sent the show sheet and read this name and go, wow, I really need to go deep myself. So my first guy is going to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who we saw kind of pop off in the preseason a little bit. Again, another guy that played against my Ravens, and I think that he looked really good in his game. He showed great mobility, and he was accurate with his passes. He extended plays, throw on the run, hit guys. I mean, he looked really good. And he has the kind of quarterback profile where that's something I'm interested in. We want these players that have good rushing ability and can, get the job done and extend plays. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson's a guy that's highly on my radar right now. A guy I'm trying to get thrown into trades, check waivers, see if he's on the waivers. And he's a guy I'm definitely into at cost.
Yeah, he's a very deep name. We should probably give a little bit of context. He is the rookie quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. He was a late draft pick, and I am blanking on the college that he attended. Maybe Chris, you could pull that up. But yeah, he is a mobile quarterback, and he has looked very good so far in the preseason. He's gotten some positive reports. He is battling for the backup job with, I believe, Kellen Mond at the moment, and he seems to be the favorite to win that backup job. So that is very exciting. With guys that are more standard pocket passers, it's not as exciting because even if they are thrust into starting roles, we don't know if they're any good. You probably aren't going to want to start them. But with somebody like him, with his mobility, you can play him. And even if he's terrible, he's probably going to be able to give you reasonable production in your super flex. And so that's a guy you want to hold on to. But if he is good and he finds himself traded or something happens with Deshaun Watson and he's the starter, that's going to be a guy you're going to be really happy that you have.
Yeah, so DTR went to UCLA. He's actually in my pre-draft quarterback model. He was my 7th quarterback of the class, which based on where he got drafted is actually pretty decent. He's somebody that I ended up high on in rookie drafts and got a couple shares there. And, just quick shout out, another guy that I had way higher than the NFL had in my quarterback model was Brock Purdy, who ended up becoming a pretty decent asset. Unfortunately, I trusted the draft capital more there and didn't get much of him in rookie drafts, but with DTR, I did draft more of him.
Yeah. And just one more note on him. Dynasty Zoltan, who I just did his podcast this past week. He's a friend of mine. He is incredibly high on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he does evaluate quarterback film. He has a very, reliable process for evaluating these guys. And he can't get enough of DTR. So that is an endorsement that matters to me. I've been trying to pick him up some, and that is a good deep shout out. I'm going to stay at the quarterback position for my second guy. And this is somebody we've seen before. We've seen perform at a high level for fantasy purposes. And that's Jameis Winston, who has become kind of a forgotten man. He is still the backup quarterback for the New Orleans Saints behind Derek Carr. But honestly, this is just a guy that I think still can play football. He once threw for 5,000 yards, which is just impressive in its own right. And he's hanging around. He's a competent backup, and he's hanging around the league. And he's somebody that, if he gets a shot to start, is going to be somebody you want. And the quarterback market, or the quarterback, position in general in the NFL, is so volatile. You just never know when these guys are going to pop up again and become starters. And so he's somebody that, if I have the space on my bench in Dynasty, I really like to hold on to him, because he does offer value as a potential backup if Derek Carr were to go down. And he offers that future upside of, like, what if a team is like, hey, we need a quarterback, let's bring him back. Like, what if he's Geno Smith? He could absolutely follow that kind of path.
Yeah, I love this pick. I would have taken it myself if you didn't already have it. I think Jameis, we saw he's perfectly capable, 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. I mean, that he had an amazing season. And then he got LASIK surgery after that, so now he can actually see. So if he ends up in, starting spot with the Saints, and he's throwing to Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, and we could see some very productive fantasy games out of him. I think he's a great guy to stash. He's, on my short list of backup quarterbacks that I actually do roster in Superflex leagues. And yeah, I think this is a great call out.
Sweet. Love it. Let's wrap things up with your last guy here.
So my last guy actually probably has the highest ADP of these four players. It's Justin Ross. He's going to get a chance on the Chiefs to carve out a starting wide receiver role. Kadarius Toney is always injured. Sky Moore was a huge disappointment in terms of playing time last year. So there's really not much else there on the roster. Justin Ross did have a very, very good college profile early, and he's just a guy that, really his upside compared to his cost is quite disproportionate. But when you factor in the risk of, the medical history and the lack of production after his freshman year, that's where, the cost kind of balances out. But he does have quite high upside if we can see him, go back to what he was as an early college player in, Patrick Mahomes-led offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're trying to paint a picture, trying to find the route to significant value accrual, Justin Ross is the guy. Like, I don't think there's a super high probability that he's going to work out. I'm not even sure that he's going to make the team. We'll see. But he's a great story. Certainly, it seems like all the Chiefs players want him to succeed. And if he were to hit, especially based on, like you said, his early college production, it could be in a big way. So that is an exciting guy if you can get him on your team to just hold on to. I personally would not trade anything of value for him, but if you can trade a late rookie pick, or you can trade some other sort of roster clogging wide receiver, somebody wants points now, and you're like, hey, I'll give you Tyler Boyd for Justin Ross. Like, I don't care. You can trade Tyler Boyd if you want. And get a guy on your team that truly has potential to gain a lot of value if everything breaks right. So those have been 4. Did you have anything less to say, Chris?
Yeah, I was just going to say I definitely would not trade even a third for him at this point, but his cost isn't a third. So,
right.
Got to send a couple fourths maybe. Hopefully you drafted him cheap in rookie drafts, but yeah, I'm not going out and buying him. I'm just saying this is a guy that, like Paul said, low probability, could have a huge payoff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the right way to go about it. So these have been 4 very under the radar dynasty buys. You kind of have to think outside the box to see how they pay off. But if you think about last year, right, guys like Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, Evan Ingram, cast off from his team, seemed like he had kind of been a failed experiment. Isaiah Pacheco, 7th round running back, seemingly behind a 1st round running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Calvin Ridley dealing with a season-long gambling suspension. These are guys that have risen in value tremendously from where they were a year ago. And a lot of it was just not foreseeable. And so you have to be creative sometimes, and you have to really see what's possible. I think for these 4 guys, there's absolutely a path to, entering into the top 10 rounds of startups as soon as next season. And so we want to chase that. Get these guys on your roster. Just don't pay too much. This has been a little bonus segment for you from the factory tour. If you liked it, check out the main show. Did a whole hour with Chris on preseason week 2. Recorded with my friend Matt last week on preseason week 1. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify as well as on YouTube here. Check it out, and I will see you guys next time.